Hi.
Hi.
All right, so we're back. I'm Cody Decker,
I'm Duncan Gale.
and we'll be covering today the book "We'll Save the Galaxy for Food" by Yahtzee Crenshaw.
Croshaw, I think, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
well, imagine I said that one.
Okay, yeah.
Yahtzee Crenshaw.
Yeah, and guess what, folks? Yahtzee is actually not his real name. Shocking, I know.
His name is not Yahtzee.
No, his name is not actually a dice game. Yeah.
Which life is a game of
That's
dice.
true.
You
Yeah.
got to know
Life
when
is,
to fold them, know when to hold them.
Know when to roll them.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
This he's a YouTuber.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But he does video game reviews. His whole thing is like his username is 0 punctuation. So and then his
Yeah.
fake name is then Yahtzee Croshaw.
Right.
And someday we'll learn what his real name is.
Right. Someday when we look him up on Wikipedia.
Whenever that day may come.
Who knows? Yeah.
I was like his humor, it's like really quick, like he's called 0 punctuation because he's like 2-minute reviews where he's just like, here's my experience playing this game.
Right.
I like his humor, and so I was like, oh, I didn't know he wrote a book. He had like a couple, and I just love the title of this. Like that, I thought the title and the cover were very enticing to me.
Oh, definitely.
And I was really happy with the humor of it. It reminded me when I checked out Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency.
Right.
A very, very similar vibe I felt.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, just on the title and cover, yeah, what it reminded me of. And yeah, these may not be references that you are familiar with, but there was a series of computer games back in the 80s and early 90s called the Space Quest games. By Sierra, I think, and this definitely gave me Space Quest vibes. It was a series of games. The protagonist was this guy Roger Wilco, who was a janitor on a spaceship, and he basically stumbled into being a sci-fi hero. But the games were very humorous, and it was all about his sort of inept bumbling somehow leading to him saving the galaxy or the universe, whatever. And so, yeah, once the book actually developed, it diverged quite a bit from sort of the tone of those games. But it seems like this guy Yahtzee Croshaw, from what I saw, he also designs video games as well. I think that's correct, and I could definitely sort of understand how that's the case, given the sort of vibe of this book. Yeah.
He at the very least reviews them.
Okay.
But I think like they've had games like based on his stuff. He had like a competition where like people made games based off like his YouTube channel and stuff.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he gave the best one to like, because he's like, you all did a lot of creative things, but I'm giving the winners this because he actually made it like a game. Because usually it's just like references to things. He's like, the fact that he made this like a thing you play means that he won, because that was the contest.
Sure.
I don't know. He's like, I don't know if I wasn't clear on that. It's not just stuff I've said.
Right.
Yeah, this is why I like books, because it's like you can just write a book, right?
Sure.
And he wrote this, narrated it, and just submitted it to Audible.
Right.
He got it physically published, like very, like I guess like on request, and it's like not that easy to find because it's a YouTuber book. But it is like, wait, he just made this.
Yeah.
So this is just what he wanted to do, and he got it. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
But the thing is, it wasn't easy to get a physical copy of this. And you're a physical reader.
Yeah. Generally speaking, yeah, I have very limited experience listening to audiobooks, and yeah, from my experience, I mean, however you choose to consume a book is fine. I mean, you can read it, as a physical book. You can read it on your Kindle, or you can listen to it as an audiobook. I mean, all of those things count as reading a book as far as I'm concerned. But I'm just used to reading a physical book. Yeah, I mean, in terms of like listening to something audio, it seems to me like it's a skill that needs to be developed to like be able to sort of pay attention and consume a book that way. And so, and I feel like I haven't quite developed that skill. So yeah, that was the way I experienced this book. I may not have quite as much to say about this book as other books that we've discussed because of my limited experience with audiobooks, but I will do my best to keep up with you here.
Well, and that was I got into audiobooks because I worked at a warehouse, which I won't be doing in a bit. Because like you do warehouse work, your brain is not needed.
Sure.
That's not a dig on it. It's just like you move boxes and you put labels on the boxes. Your brain is completely free and you're physically doing something. It's the perfect environment to like get into. Because the thing was, when I was like, I'm leaving, I had to come back to help out with it. And I was like, I have to get a job similar to this if I'm going to continue listening to audiobooks. Because when I have nothing to do, I don't listen to audiobooks.
Right.
Because there have been times when the book was really good, and I am just sitting in my room in the dark, just being like, oh boy.
Yeah.
All right, this is awesome. And I'm just like, this is weird. This is a weird thing. It's not the same as being in your room alone reading a book.
Right.
When you're just sitting there listening to it, you're like, this is wrong.
Sure. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. So it's inherently an activity that you feel like you should only be doing when you're also doing something else.
Yeah, like driving, it's great.
Right.
Like that's why I was like, oh, I'll do Uber Eats because I can like drive, and like my body's busy.
Right.
And my brain I got nothing to do. I tell people that I'm like, oh, you should get into audiobooks. Okay, have you read a book before? Okay, listen to that as an audiobook to get used to it.
Yeah,
because it is a thing.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
I got to the point where I can play video games while listening to audiobooks.
Yeah.
And you can feel your brain freaking out when you start doing that. You can feel your brain being like, dude, just stop. And I'm like, no, we're going to do this. I'm not going to stop gaming.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop listening. And now I'm being productive because I'm reading a book.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I completely get where it's just like, what even happened?
Right. Yeah. In terms of like the overall plot of this story, I'm a little fuzzy on it, but it also feels like one of those books where the plot is really maybe not super important. Like I mean, it's more about the sort of overall vibe and tone of what's going on.
Yeah, it's a comedy that dips into like some real character moments every now and then. It's just a British comedy.
Right.
It would be. I think it'd be great as a movie. Especially the
definitely.
Format of it, and that's why it's just like it's a very clear structure of like here's this guy, here's what he's going to do, and then like here's like a bunch of stuff happening that's like around it, and then it has a resolution with a hook at the end.
Sure, yeah, and it seems like it's a bit atypical in terms of audiobooks because so as you mentioned, so this actually started out as an audiobook. Yeah. I mean, it was originally that. I mean, sort of much like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which started out as a radio show and only later was made into a book. Yeah, so it's kind of the same sort of deal. So that's cool. And I will say, I mean, this audiobook, I mean, it's read by the author himself, and you know, he does, I would imagine probably an above average job in terms of like, actually portraying the characters and so forth. It seems like he's really sort of putting it in and wants to make it a real sort of performance and not just, you know, the reading of a book.
He is very. Which, if you watch his videos, you're like, oh, that's the voice he uses for, like, when he's, like, making fun of, like, dumb takes.
Right,
That's the voice he uses for the teenagers. So you're like, oh, that's very... It's, like, he has, like, these set voices, and he, like, when I'm doing this type of character, you can tell, like, he's doing this type of voice now.
Yep.
And I liked his voice for, like, the stuck-up secretary.
Sure.
Like, that voice, like, it actually, like, it's not, like, you can feel, like, he's putting, like... I felt like, I'm more connected to this character for him having done the voice like this.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a huge fan of this.
Yeah, cool.
So, as far as the first chapter of it goes, I really, I mean, because the story is it's like a sci-fi comedy,
right?
And so it opens with you're being told like, oh, there was this massive space battle, and here on the stars of Saturn, I defeated the evil blah blah blah, and then it just cuts to like a teenager being like, boring,
Right,
I'm bored now, and then you find out he's this guy giving a space tour because he was a space pilot, but they invented teleporters, and immediately this like sci-fi hero role just like stopped mattering.
Right.
But then also it was like that was just happening constantly. This guy was like in this world, the comedy aspect too is this is like because humans just had like better technology when they started space traveling.
Right.
It was just so easy to just go to a planet and just like rescue them from an evil overlord because all you needed was like a ray gun.
Right.
And some quick wit, and there were just dozens and dozens of people like that. And now it's like they're unemployed because that no one needs to fly anywhere.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that the first chapter sets up the very sort of clear tone of the overall book, which is very sort of cynical, pessimistic. I mean, the very sort of British humor, definitely some Douglas Adams influence there as well. But and in terms of just letting you know that this is not going to really be a conventional hero story. That concept is not really valued in this world anymore.
Which I really like it when a protagonist does things I'm like, oh, you shouldn't have done that.
Right.
Because it makes me I just go like, oh, this is like an actual character and not the hero.
Yeah.
Which is funny because that's like basically just like there was just a job where you just used to be a space hero.
Right.
And now they're all broke, and it's like he gives a tour and it's like, oh no, we're being attacked by space pirates. And they mention that like everything's just called space stuff now. And it's like, oh, we're going to have to jettison your cargo to escape. And it's like, oh, that's like a stage thing he does.
Right.
But then also he like has a deal with the pirates to like give them the cargo that they jettison. And then, they mentioned that like the intercom button is like stuck and he like accidentally reveals that.
Right.
They're just like, remember, Captain, the button's a little bit sticky.
Yeah.
Because he can hear them like talking trash about the tour.
Right.
He's like, I'd like to remind you all that the button's sticky.
Right.
So it is just this like no one wants to be a part of these space tours. Like the parents are like, oh, maybe it'll be fun for the kid, and the kid's bored, and the dad's like into it in the way that like you're interested in like Civil War reenactments.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's funny.
And then it's on the post, we'll save the galaxy for food, and he's holding up a cardboard sign.
Right.
And space pilots are now just like homeless beggars who also give tours.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a very sort of destitute, undignified, fate that they have. For
and they're like, I feel bad for him. We should give him a tip. And he's just like, you hear them say that, and then giving a tour is just like it's like a mix between like like Home Depot workers.
Right.
Where if they were all like they all used to be like sci-fi heroes, and now it's just like, can anyone give a tour on being a sci-fi hero? Like, I can do it.
Right.
And then just the bit of the sci-fi thing where they just mentioned the thing that people eat are sushi burgers. I like that. I like little touches like that where it's just,
yeah, that's cool.
So the story also where I like it is someone wrote a book called like Jack Mckeon.
Okay.
And that's like the most, that book series is like the biggest thing in like that world. People are like, that's like their like the thing. But the thing is like that guy wrote, no one knows who the author is.
Sure.
But he stole all the stories from all the other space pilots.
Right.
So they can't write books about their lives. So like he's profiting off their adventures and they can't. And that like adds to like the issue they're in is like all of our stories have been taken.
Yeah. And I guess that's maybe one of the central mysteries of the book is, who is Jack Mckeon?
Yeah.
Because the main character of this book, as far as I can remember, unless I missed something, I don't think he's ever named.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So he's never named. Yeah. But he ends up basically taking on the identity of Jack Mckeon because the people that hire him basically want to believe that he is him. So that's that. So that's an interesting thing. Is that I mean the narrator of the book. It's a first person narration, but you never really have a clear sense. Well, I mean, you have a clear sense of kind of who he is as a character, but he's never specifically identified. You don't know anything specific about him.
Yeah, and then and you find out about him as the story. Because I would say you don't have a clear idea of him. And honestly, like in the second book especially, he does a thing where I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I just assumed he wouldn't do something like that.
Right.
But he was like, yeah, this is not. You don't know his name. You don't know who he is, and you find out like the way he would behave, and you see how he is like a cynical washout now.
Right.
But they do mention that like, yeah, he used to be a hero.
Right.
But he like, it's not the kind where he's just like, you're right, I will change my ways. He's like, oh no, he is like truly like over being a hero for a very good amount of time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The setup, which I think is very fun, which is like. The main mafia guy on Earth, which is like, yeah, that's like a cesspool now. You don't want to be on Earth.
Right.
The secretary, like his son, is a huge fan of Jack McKeon.
Right.
And the secretary was like hired a guy who she thought was Jack McKeon, and it was like she just got scammed online. So she just walked to this like port and was just like walked up to the first space pilot she saw and was like, "I need you to pretend to be Jack McKeon for a birthday party."
Right.
That's the premise of this book.
Exactly, yeah.
He needs to pretend to be the most hated man in the world of space pilots. Right. And he's just like, that is a lot of money. That's so and I really liked that. Because you don't know who he is. All you know is he doesn't like the guy he's pretending to be.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the sort of interesting thing is that, this persona of Jack McKeon, the people outside of the pilot world think he's like really great because he's the only person popularizing it. But within the pilot world, he's completely hated. So I mean, this guy basically has to like put a giant target on his back in order to get this money from these people, but he's also sort of in constant danger.
Because he's like, all the space pilots are talking like, we heard Jack McKeon's gonna be on Earth, and they're like, everyone's just getting like lead pipes, or like, we're gonna mess like, and the secretary doesn't even realize that like he's like, don't say that name out loud, because people are like, where's Jack McKeon? He's like, I don't know. Right.
I mean, there is one funny part where he's like, I was just imagining what I would do if I knew that Jack McKeon was here, and I felt my fist go into my other hand, and so
it's a very I would say, having just read the Holistic Detective Agency, that was more of like an overt comedy.
Sure.
And I think this is more of a humorous adventure.
Right.
Because they're just the attitude of everyone is just I enjoy it so much. Where it's just like how bad would they all want to beat up Jack McKeon, and then just the classic thing where he's just like, well, I'm being paid to say I am, but if anyone finds out, they're going to kill me. Right. And I know that because I would kill him.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and just how like he gets the money transferred, and it's like, oh, that says Jack McKeon on your computer. He's like, no, right. And then you just see like a bunch of space pilots like already start raising up, and they're like, we're going to kill that man.
Right. Well, yeah. That's another interesting part. Yeah, where he gets contacted by Jack McKeon's publisher because apparently Jack McKeon hasn't been picking up his checks for all of the books he's been writing, and so the publisher transfers the money to him, and then it's this weird thing where it's like, well, everybody hates Jack McKeon because he was profiting off of all the stuff that he didn't really do, but now this guy is the one who's profiting off of that.
Yeah.
And so he can no longer complain about Jack McKeon being the one to do that.
That's like part of the mystery. Is like whoever Jack McKeon is, they never like bothered collecting the checks.
Yeah.
But then and then like people bring up, so it's like, so you are doing the thing that everyone hated him for. He's like, right. Yes, but I was a victim.
Yeah, but I'm gonna give it all to charity.
It's a very I just love the piling on of the situation for him.
Oh yeah.
And how he like when he sees that paycheck, he spills coffee, and then he like has to run away, and all the space pilots are like, and the guy's like And I do like that bit of the story where he's running away from all the other space pilots, and you do see how so he is a standout in this world of space pilots, though.
Right.
In the world of washouts, he's got a little bit more color in.
Sure.
Because he does escape them, and he does outsmart them, and then he's like, oh, and they're like, oh, we got you a ship in your name, and that's how you're gonna get to Earth. And all the space pilots are just waiting to beat that guy up, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I was just using this space. Is this yours?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah. We thought."
Yeah, that was a great.
He's like, "You said." He was like, "Yeah, I guess I was wrong. I remember the guy spilled a bunch of coffee on his shirt."
Oh,
and he's like, "Ah."
Yeah, that's a great sequence
and
there.
It gets the plot going again. He has to run away, get to a teleporter, and space pilots are like, we hate teleporters because that's the fundamentally what took our jobs away.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And the bit of the world building too, all the slurs are based on math because of when the guy was explaining.
Oh, right.
Teleporters, they was like, it's just a bit of addition and subtraction, and the guy was like, I'll give you some subtraction. So now space pilots swear in quantum formulas and stuff.
Oh yeah, because they're forbidden to actually say curse words or something like that. Like they'll get fined for it, so they have to create their own slang.
Yeah, and the bit about teleporters too is everyone assumed it would be these swirling vortexes of energy,
right?
But it's just it's just a clear window from one place to another. There's no big special effects.
Right.
To the point where a VIP pass to a teleporter just means they add velvet ropes and stuff on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way of even making them more fancy. There's nothing. They add lights for the benefit of the viewer. They were it was all that was the other thing. Teleporters are just very boring things. It's just you just go through them.
Yeah, that's great. The one thing that another thing that gave me real sort of Douglas Adams vibes a little bit was the aliens that appear at a certain point in here. They're the Zoobs, I think they're called. Yeah, and the
Zoobs are the slime things that used to be pets.
Right, yeah, and at one point they're actually wearing human faces as masks, which is a very disturbing image, but it's almost but there's this kind of innocence about the Zoobs. I mean the way that he performs their voice is very funny, where they're just hello, hello.
Because it's that should be horrifying.
Right.
That's such a horrifying concept, because they talk about Zoobs were pets, but when they get hungry, they don't care. So they would always just end up eating the crews they would be on. And so and also the meta thing is those were the sci-fi sidekick pet things.
Right.
But they would always end up eating and just taking over and just going through the motions of what they saw.
Right.
And they have this parrot understanding of human language too, and wearing a human face, and somehow it's just funny.
Right. Oh yeah. No, there's something about it that's very sort of good natured.
Yeah,
food. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not they're once they're done eating, they're just they're very passive again.
Right.
But they also don't care that they just ate the whole crew of the ship they were on.
Right. Yeah. So that was another part I enjoyed. Yeah.
And you see that the pilots that usually have missing limbs, it's because a Zoob ate them.
Right.
So for the pirate aesthetic of they have an eye patch or a hook arm, it's because they got eaten by a Zoob.
Yeah.
That's usually. I like so the premise too is it's the most dangerous criminal in this world on Earth, and he is treated very seriously too.
Right.
And he actually did feel menacing, but he also does love his son.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, I mean he, and the son, is an interesting character, and there's a part where he has a girl that he's trying to impress, and that's sort of a turning point with the narrator, because he's sort of annoyed by the son, but then when he sees but this kid's just trying to impress a girl, he kind of warms towards him a little bit. Yeah. So
Yeah, the where it's just like, oh yeah, this is Jack McKeon. He's gonna take you on a space tour. That's and the son too is, and he's like, oh, and he's gonna take up the family business, and it's like, no, I'm not, Dad. and like that part, I really like that because it is because it's like, oh, it's like a emotional teenager rebelling, but he's rebelling against an evil guy.
Oh sure, yeah.
So it is like kind of sweet that like he idolizes heroes.
Right,
and he's like, I'm not going to be like you, Dad. And it is like, he has like good intentions.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
And that's why it's like, yeah, he is annoying, but he's a good-hearted kid.
Right. Yeah. And the girl is kind of caught up in things as well because her mom turns out to be like the president of the of the like of Earth basically, and she feels like she's really just kind of like a pawn in her mom's like political schemes and stuff.
And they mention that like she just gets dragged out for like for when we're doing speeches, she has to be there, and she's like, like they don't really have like a good relationship.
Right.
And so you have like the daughter of the president and the son of a crime boss, and they have a very awkward teenage like star-crossed thing, and just like how difficult you see how difficult it is for them to like be around each other too.
Oh,
It's just like they have to like sneak in, and they have to like sneak. Illegally fly to like where because the narrator because they don't have to say his name he has to do like this illegal move to sneak in to be able to pick up he also doesn't know that's what's happening the guy's like, I just need to pick up my friend. He's like, what's their name? He's like, it's just my friend. I'm like, yeah. They're a teenager, like and then I do like too she's immediately like, that's not Jack McKeon,
He's like, she totally figures it out immediately.
Which one of the popular theories is like, oh, is that the narrator of Jack McKeon? She's also the most familiar with space. So her and the son are both very familiar with all the Jack McKeon stories and space pilots and stuff. Like the big theory, and the author says like the Jack McKeon is someone that you see in the first book.
Oh really? Okay. Yeah.
So he's like, you've met them.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's like, but that's all I'm gonna say. So it is like, who could it be?
Okay, so the identity of Jack McKeon is not revealed in the second book either.
Well, if it was, I wouldn't say.
Okay, gotcha.
But like that's what the narrator has said, at least about the first book. Is you've met? They're not a made up character. I know who they are. Just so you know, this isn't a mystery that I'm trying to figure out. Like
right.
I want it on record that they are a character that you've met.
Okay.
And that's where they get on. So the thing that sets off the whole, and you get like a lot in the tense negotiations where the crime boss is like, oh, so you're Jack McKeon. By the way, if I find out you're messing with me, I'm gonna gut you. And he has like a ring that has like cassowary, that's with like talon on him. And he like brushes it against the main character's like stomach and stuff. He's like, and I'll gut you. But if you're not, we'll be friends. And it's a very tense thing. All he's supposed to do is give one tour.
Yeah.
But then it's like, but if I like you, we can make this a partnership. And he is like, the narrator has this thing where it's like, he's going to make a living pretending to be Jack McKeon.
Right.
But he can never go back to like his friends or anyone because they're all going to want to kill him. And he has like one guy he's friends with where he's like, by the way, I'm being hired to be Jack McKeon.
Right.
So I want you to know that. So if you see me, that's where I'm doing. But anyone else, they're not going to believe him.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I mean this book is clearly a comedy book first and foremost, but I may be reading too much into the themes of this book. But it seems like nothing is what it seems in this. Like everything is fake in this story, and that seems to be a big sort of recurring thing that happens. Like I mean, he's not really Jack McKeon. Like when they go to the planet with all of those like cyborg creatures, that turns out to all be
that's something else.
That's
spoiler.
Something else. Okay.
Yeah,
no spoilers.
The president's like lying about being a family person. The crime boss is like That's the funny thing is the crime boss loves his son. The president of Earth views their daughter as like a pawn.
Right.
So you have like everyone's like hiding or like they're living this like double thing that you wouldn't expect.
But yeah, and that all seems to be just part of this overarching picture of this world where, there used to be like, regular sci-fi type stuff that happened in this world with like adventures and wars and stuff. But that's all over now. And now everybody is just like going through the motions of like pretending to still do that.
Yeah.
But only for the amusement of rich people, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I like. I definitely that's probably the theme. Now that you're saying that.
Yeah.
I think like profit or whatever. You use the term for that, I think, for transformative or
Protean.
Would you say that was that in this one too? At the very least, holding up appearances and like
right.
Because even Jack Mckeon, no one knows who they are, and they're not even profiting off it. So,
right.
So it's they still ruin people's lives, but like they're like, oh, but they didn't do it for money.
Right.
So why did they do all this? Like, were they just a fan? That like, and now they're just like, ooh, well, I ruined my heroes' lives.
Right. Yeah. There's all of these facades that are kind of broken down.
Yeah, and the main character who used to be a hero,
right,
is now pretending to be the villain of his life.
Right.
Even though he's not a hero anymore, even in demeanor. So he is like a negative, cynical, like pessimistic. I hate this. I hate everyone. I hate this world.
Right.
And then you see that there's a plot to like, recreate things, and like everyone wants to like go back to the glory days. Even pirates that like pilots are, which they've mentioned the joke, which is like a lot of pilots either became homeless tour guides or pirates. But there's not even that much to steal anymore because the only people you can steal from are people that are still using space travel, which isn't a thing.
Right.
The only reason to space travel is for the novelty of it.
Sure. Yeah.
So it is like nothing's going on in this world anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's just all a bunch of performances. Yeah.
And the joke they have about quantum stuff, which is like teleporters don't work if you look at them.
Right.
So they only because the thing of like observational stuff, and so the
right.
joke is you have to look away for a teleporter to turn on.
Right.
So that was fun.
Yeah.
Also, the crime boss, he like gets like this big ave like space yacht essentially, and they mentioned there's so many types of ships that they started having to call them like animal names because they've started running out of things to even call things anymore.
Right.
They're running, and it's like, oh, it's a space yacht version, blah blah blah. It's like they don't even know what to name things anymore, and everyone's just like, oh, this is just a giant target.
Right.
This is not what a real ship would look like.
Right.
And that's when like the big plot seats going off. And also he technically kidnapped. Oh no, he wasn't like the secretary had their own thing going on because secretaries of the crime boss always end up getting like being the fall guy for this crime boss who has like a like a good surface like public thing, and they're just like, oh, it wasn't me, it was and also people don't really believe that, but it's like, what are you gonna do?
Right.
Just also that's just a real thing. So like the secretary is the one that like kicks off the second issue, which is like she's like, I know I'm next in line to be the fall guy,
right,
and I'm not gonna let it happen because like they mentioned like another secretary is already coming in, and it's just a younger version of her.
Yeah. She can already see her replacement coming in.
Yeah, and they have like a bureaucratic off where they're both like everyone's just like naming like technicalities and laws and statutes at each other.
Oh yeah.
And it's a very like
that part was very funny. Yeah.
But she's like, you and me are gonna kidnap these like because these are also these are the most important children in the galaxy.
Right.
And we're gonna kidnap them. And we're gonna escape. And the main character's like, I don't want to do this.
Right.
And he tries to make deals and stuff because he's still like not like,
right.
Yeah, let's fight them. He's like, no.
Yeah, and then later on, she suggests to the main character, well, we should have sex now, and he's like, oh really? I didn't know you were attracted to me. And she's like, well, I'm not, but I can see you're attracted to me. And it's like I mean that was interesting. I mean, there's sort of the subversion of like, I mean, the common trope in these sorts of stories, like with Han Solo and you know Princess Leia, where it's like, well, you know, I'm going to pretend I'm not into you, but in this case, it seemed like these people really weren't into each other.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
They went like, this is the part where we should have sex.
Right.
And he's like, I don't know. And that was at like the climax of the story where that usually happens.
Right.
But instead he's just like, and he's also like funny. He's like, I mean, if we can.
Right.
It's that's probably one of my favorite plays on story tropes was the woman just being like, I think we should have sex at this point.
Right.
And but then I do like too that when the main character does have his time to shine, and he is like a creative hero.
Oh, sure.
Guy when like he's dealing with the crime boss, he has like a bodyguard that's like a cyborg and is like indestructible. Right. And they mention that he's just like jumping from like a broken, like when the crime boss comes to just to rescue his son. Like he's not in the wrong. That's the interesting thing. The crime boss is doing a heroic thing.
Right.
He is just like, just give me my son back and we'll talk.
Right.
And the problem is the secretary's one's like, I don't trust him. But the main character is like, he's like secretly messaging him. He's like, I mean, we can try to work something out.
Right.
And you see like the bodyguard like jumping, like not even in a spacesuit, just like jumping from like debris in space and like jumping at him. Like, oh, this is like an indestructible thing. And the main character comes with like a very creative way of like fighting him off, but like still getting like beaten up, and like zoobs are attracted to blood, and the main character is getting knocked around so much. He's like shooting like blood from his nose to like attract them and distract them and stuff. Right. I think as a quick adventure thing, like you were talking about, that makes so much sense. Where they're just like, oh, you just unlocked like blood trails, and it's just like you have like a meter of this, how much you can do. You need to like recover. Right. They mentioned for the rest of the book, he's like limping, and he's like he keeps piling on injuries and stuff. What I like too, like he doesn't like just get back up. He's like, okay, let me just 1 second. Now, and I just realized an issue for me is I like this book so much, I just jumped straight over to the second book.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to be careful. Yes, I almost said what the climax of the second book was.
Okay.
The problem with audiobooks especially is they all just merge. Like, I have no idea what chapter was which chapter.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't even know where they ended because I went, okay, cool, next one.
Right. Fair enough. Well... Yeah, I mean, this book at least, the first one, I mean, it was a new experience, listening to an audiobook, but I think, if you're curious about experiencing one for the first time, this is a good one to start with, because I mean, again, it was created for this medium specifically, and the guy that does it is I think especially good at performing the different characters and so forth. So
and eventually they do land on this planet where they're just like, oh, it's like the old days. And it's just like, and you see like the hero is now put into like, okay, he's like, oh, like he's starting to like feel like that sense of adventure again. And he starts being like, he starts feeling fulfilled again. And then it all builds up to him, and then it's like, oh, it's the old villain of who built like their parody of Borgs.
Right.
He's just like, oh, he's up to his old tricks, and it's just like everyone Sturge, and he's in it. There's basically, I tell people, like, this all builds up to the punchline of him trying to think of something to say when he confronts him.
Right.
And just not having anything good.
Right.
And just that part, I was like, oh my God, that was all worth it. You need all the context to appreciate this one punchline.
Sure.
But yeah, that's the theme of like pretending and like holding appearances, which the president's doing. And,
right.
And like how the villain is like not doing a villainous thing, even though he is a bad person.
Right.
But what he's doing is what anyone else would have done.
Oh, sure.
And that adds to the thing like the heroes are like, you know, and also the kids don't even know they're being kidnapped.
Right.
Because the kid is like, oh yeah, I always wanted to be on a tour with Jack Mckeon.
Right.
So this is awesome.
Yeah, it's just a fun vacation.
Yeah. And at one of the issues is he is just like, oh yeah, I told my dad where we were. And they're like, what? He's like, I thought he kept asking me. And they're like,
Right.
Okay, well that really is like, okay, we're gonna have to tell you we are kidnapping you.
Right. Right.
So you can't talk to your dad anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It is this is a little prelude. No, I don't know. That's not what that word means. But just the thing in the second book, it does start becoming a little bit more serious.
Okay.
It's still a comedy through and through,
Right.
but like again with this author, when he wants to be serious, and the world, even though the world is very silly, I take it I take it serious.
Sure. Yeah.
Like I believe that that's what this world is. It's funny that that's how it is, but that I
Right.
believe that there's consequences in it.
Well, yeah. I mean, there is something, sort of, yeah. I mean, you could say like depressingly realistic. About
Yeah,
it in a
okay,
way,
yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, no, I mean, it's funny, but you can also see how, this is the way that things could turn out. Yeah, yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And the second book, the climax of it, I actually got chills.
Oh wow. Okay.
Like it gets to a point where like I was like, oh, that's actually kind of scary.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
I was like emotionally invested in like that character.
Mm-hmm.
Who still, I forgot. Yeah, you never learn what his name is,
Right.
or they did, and it's like one line, and they move on.
Right. Right.
Oh yeah, they mentioned. Well, she mentions that in the beginning that he has like 10 different aliases.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the thing is that he has a number of different identities. So yeah.
So he's like, oh yeah, my real name's this. She's like, I know it's not. I know that's this alias that you've used when you got like pulled over.
Right. Right.
It had a sweet wrap up too, where basically in the beginning he like parked illegally.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it had like just a genuinely heartfelt line
Mm-hmm.
at the end. I don't know if that counts as a spoiler for like.
Well, I
But
guess.
I think that captures the theme though.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's your vote on that? Because I don't know if that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember what exactly the line is. I mean, it ends with him like basically just getting arrested, right?
Yeah, for a parking ticket.
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's just like, so yeah, it's basically
yeah.
a joke at the end
Right,
because
right.
he is also like, yeah, it's fine. Like, it's not going to be that big of a thing.
Sure.
Like, they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, is this your vehicle?
Right.
And he's like, oh, no, he just got set up with a new alias again. And he was just like, you know what? Yeah, it is mine.
Right.
And they're like, they arrest him like, what happened? Did you just forget to pay it? And he goes, no, but I stopped remembering.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, that's
Right,
like,
right.
as far as like the whole thing about trying to capture the past again and putting up appearances and like pretending, he just went like,
Yeah.
no, yeah, it's
Interesting,
that's my, yeah, give me the fine.
Right.
Yeah, because like he goes through this whole thing. He's like, oh, I could escape. I can give him a fake name. I can run away. I can like, I have all these, I can like, we can have a chase scene. And he's just like,
Right.
no.
No, he's
Yeah, just give me the ticket.
he's sick of it.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem with any comedy is it's like you can't go too in depth in
Right.
the. So yeah, theme wise, it's like upholding appearances, trying to desperately cling on to the past. But there's a whole group of space pilots that are like, we're gonna do it, and it's just like,
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're gonna bring back the glory days. Like, there's no glory days left, and also
Right.
it's like, were they really glory days?
Yeah. It's like nothing is really as cool as it seems. Yeah.
yeah.
It's like you hear stories about something, but then when you see the reality, it's like yeah.
Yeah, and especially with like the stories of Jack Mckeon, it's like the
Right,
space
right.
pilot is like, well, that's not really even what happened, and it's just
Right,
like
right.
these heroic space battles. It's just like the other aliens just never developed guns.
Right.
They weren't these like massive triumphs. It was just like we were the technologically superior
Right.
race, and also the main villain that was doing the Borg stuff, that was another human.
Right.
So like most of the issues were the issues we caused.
Right.
And we just either undid them or like it was a really easy thing of like these two like warrior tribes. We
Yeah.
came in with a gun and we just like wiped out the other ones. It wasn't
Right. Right. Yeah. That kind of reminds me of the character of Zap Brannigan.
Yeah.
On, Futurama. Yeah. Where basically he's this heroic, he's like won all these battles, but it turns out that every battle he's won, there's been like millions of casualties that were like needless.
Yeah, the killbots.
Yeah,
where he's
yeah.
like, I discovered that they had a limit to how many people they could kill.
Right.
So I just sent enough people to where they would just shut down from killing so much.
Yeah.
That is prime military satire right there.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that pretty much covers. I recommend this audiobook.
Yeah, I would recommend it as well. Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. It's a comedy, but it still treats itself seriously.
It does. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of still interesting emotional moments in it. Yeah.
And I think part of the experience too, because like when he starts discovering that sense of adventure, I'm right there with him, being like, because you're given his insight into the world, where it's like stupid and cynical, none of this makes any sense.
Right.
And but then like a real adventure does start happening. Now he is on the run from the mafia. Now he does have like a kid sidekick, and now he's going through all this stuff, and it is just like. And he's like, oh my! And now here's some downtrodden people he can rescue, and you are like, yeah, this is fun again.
Right.
And then maybe the world's still cynical even past that.
Yeah. Well, good stuff.
Good stuff. You reading, watching anything like this
or? Just watched Doctor Strange. That. Yeah.
You liked it?
Yeah.
I thought it was definitely probably the best Marvel movie I'll see post Endgame.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. Well, there's something in there that again I won't spoil it, but gives the hope of maybe another good Marvel movie featuring some characters that have not yet had a good Marvel movie. So I'm hopeful for that. Yeah.
It was actually kind of sweet.
Yeah.
Especially, it's hard to not talk, but I was like, that's kind of nice. Seeing stuff like that.
Right.
Is it a spoiler to talk for that movie about just when they go to one world and how they have like a conversation about traffic lights?
The traffic lights was funny. Yeah, where it's basically.
I was just like, how he was like blown away by that.
Right.
I was like, I mean, come on, man, you've done so much. He was like,
symbols are not universal.
Yeah. I honestly I don't want to spoil the story. Yeah, that was good. I also watched that movie.
Yeah. Good stuff.
That's a movie that I saw like opening night, and I'm like, I think that's how you got to watch movies like this.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Like when people cheer.
Right.
It's like that was neat I got to be here for that.
Definitely some big cheering moments. Yeah. Also including for a character that you probably never expected to see again from what was a terrible TV show. But
that's the part that I was like, that's sweet that they're essentially giving them a second chance.
Yeah.
And it worked. People like started like asking for like that to be like revived.
Yeah.
That was like, I can't imagine being the actor being like, oh, guess what? You got the one Marvel thing that's not going to work.
Right.
They're just sort of going to pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I was like, that's nice that he was like, I got a phone call, and was like, yeah, and everyone's like, he did great.
Right.
Why isn't there something with him?
Yeah.
They're like, I was like, I guess we could do something with them for the first time.
Yeah. Wow. So, Doctor Strange can maybe bring back failed Marvel properties. Yeah.
All right. Well, you have any goodbye catchphrases you're thinking about? Until next time.
Until next time, keep watching The Black. That's what he calls space. Right?
Okay, yeah, dude, that's good. That is good. All right.